John Textor is unsuited for all aspects of football, which is why, as a rich American, he decided to go for the multi-ownership approach of football clubs across the globe. One of those clubs happens to be Olympique Lyonnais, who compete in the top tier of French football. Which means that as a bona fide John Textor hater, I promptly found myself 50 kilometers or so away to take over the manager job at AS Saint-Étienne, Lyon's primary rival, in order to make Textor's life in France resemble that of a rich aristocrat during the French Revolution. There's only one problem. Saint-Étienne got relegated to Ligue 2 last season. That does explain why getting this job was so easy. So, our goal this year is pretty simple. Get into one of the promotion spots for Ligue 2 and go back up to Ligue 1 next season. No ifs, ands, or buts. We'll gradually figure out the rest as we go, but the idea here is to eventually make John Textor's life miserable, and we can't exactly do that while being one division below Lyon.
Cool.
Right then, let's talk about the club I'll be managing for the foreseeable future. Association Sportive du Saint-Étienne Loire, abbreviated as ASSE and commonly known as Saint-Étienne, have been around since 1933 and were one of the French powerhouses in the 1960s and 1970s, but have fallen from grace in recent times. They're nicknamed Les Verts, meaning the Greens, due to their home colors, and along with an incredibly passionate fanbase, they also have arguably the coldest white boy in the game representing their colors on a global stage in Timothée Chalamet.
Et plus fort évidemment, c'est vert. On a bon public et les meilleurs supporters. On va gagner, ça c'est juré. Allez!
Now, being a complete creature of habit who is still exploring this whole new world of in and out of possession tactics in FM26, I ended up just basing my initial tactic around a 4-2-3-1 wing play, where the attacking center midfielder is a second striker that makes it kind of run like a 4-2-4, then shifting into a 4-3-3 with two defensive midfielders and the second striker turning into a pressing central midfielder during it. All in a neatly packaged, balanced mentality with a bunch of instructions in which I'll show off the screenshots here because explaining them will take time away from whatever memes and bits I've got to do for this whole thing. Although if this video gets 300 likes, I'll throw the link for the tactic download somewhere in the description. Also, a quick addendum to any French-speaking viewers who stumble into this. I am not very good with French pronunciations. Please know that I am trying to not completely butcher it, and I'll hopefully get somewhat better at this as I go, but if there's something I've got immensely wrong, and you've got either phonetic pronunciations of it or any helpful advice on how to improve, please drop them down in the comments. Thank you. Let me just get you back to the video. Thankfully, Saint-Étienne had a roster that looked more than ready to fight their way back to Ligue 1, including some standouts like stalwart goalkeeper and team captain Gauthier Lassonnet, defenders Dylan Batubinsika and Denis Apia, defensive midfielders Pierre Equa and Florian Tadieu, attacking midfielders Augustin Boki, Zuriku Davitashvili and Igor Miladinovic, and finally, Belgian youngster Lucas Tassan at striker. Not to mention a few new arrivals prior to my own hiring like Maxime Bernauer, João Ferreira, Ebenezer Annan, and Irvin Cardona. Although, even with a fairly stacked roster, our squad planner did show that we could maybe shore up the attacking central midfielder and left back positions, which led me to grabbing attacking midfielder Jeremia Recoba on loan from Spanish side Udi Las Palmas for the season to help with that depth, and we also got Hinan Loji on trial. But he wanted too much money, so we bailed out of that very quickly.
Nah, I'm good.
It did not take long to see how overpowered Saint-Étienne was compared to their competition in Ligue 2, as we went unbeaten through the first 13 games of the season with 9 wins and 4 draws, with Stassan, Recoba and Cardona scoring the bulk of the goals during that run. The streak was undone by Troyes in early November, as we ended up losing 1-0 at their stadium on a late-game penalty kick. Although this unbeaten run upped my confidence in that the wing play style tactic I'd put together was up to the task to get us promoted. We'd also get a chance to show how effective it was even further in this season's edition of the Coupe de France. For those unfamiliar, the Coupe de France is the premier knockout cup competition in French football that happens every year, and it is open to all professional and amateur clubs across France, and also to clubs based in their overseas departments and territories. Which means that if the draws work out in mysterious ways, we could potentially face a football club based in the French Guiana, or Martinique, or even Tahiti! Our hopes to see what overseas France had to offer would not happen in the 7th round, which was where we entered. We got sorted against a fellow Ligue 2 side in Dunkerque instead. We beat them 3-1 without too much concern, dealt with AS Nancy in league play, and then actually got our exotic arc of this whole Coupe de France arc by being sorted against GFC Ajaccio in the 8th round of the cup. And being the away club, that meant we got to travel to Corsica to play that round. It was an eventful trip, as we ended up winning a 4-2 barn burner against the Corsican side, and I finally got to see the sights of a region that's had my eye ever since I watched the Noir anime series in the early 2000s.
It smells like a fucking weeb!
Being first by a mile and a half in December convinced the board of directors to make extra transfer funds available, which jumped our budget to $5 million on that front. We repaid their kindness by beating Dunkerque in our Ligue 2 matchup, drawing against Bastia in a frustrating 0-0 at home, and then taking out AS Fabrègue in the 9th round of the Coupe de France before ranking in the new year. In between those matches, I spent 1.4 million of the transfer budget on fullback Thiago Espinosa out of Racing Club in Argentina, while selling Dennis Apia over to Almeria in Spain for 300,000. Espinosa was younger, more versatile, and a player I think will be a solid contributor for the club over the next few years, so it was an easy decision to make. Espinosa would immediately get involved during his debut, as he assisted with Augustin Boisquet's first goal in a 4-1 thrashing of Le Mans in their own stadium. 4 goals in each match would be the norm throughout most of January, as we ended up doing the same in games against Clermont and Bologna, along with beating Grenoble 4-1 in the 10th round of the Coupe de France, with Irvin Cardona getting a brace in the game. The win against Grenoble in the Cup would provide our biggest challenge yet for the 11th round. A clash against Ligue 1 side Le Havre ASSE, who had escaped relegation last season by the skin of their teeth and were in the relegation battle yet again this season. And in our clash against them in early February, it would yet again be Irvin Cardona who would be the man of the match, scoring the only goal of the entire game and ensuring the upset 1-0 victory for Saint-Étienne at Stade Océan. This would put us into the quarterfinals of the Coupe de France and against a far more dangerous opponent in Lille, who are one of the country's biggest clubs both domestically and abroad, along with being one of the 2 clubs in the past decade able to out-control the Ligue 1 trophy from Paris Saint-Germain's grasp. Furthermore, there was also the fact that the Coupe de France semi-finals draw took place before the quarterfinal, and the winner of our match against Lille would end up facing either Marseille or Lyon.
This just got more interesting. I'm gonna pull up a seat and
This just got very interesting.
I certainly had an idea of who I wanted to face if we somehow got through Lille, but we had to tackle what was in front of us first. We were 14 points ahead of second place Pau FC on the Ligue 2 table after 22 games, but with 12 games left, we couldn't afford to fall asleep at the wheel. So, we stuck to doing what we have been doing this entire time in the league by continuing to accumulate wins and draws while scoring our fair share of goals with some exciting football. With defining wins against Pau FC at their ground in late February, sealing a playoff spot in Ligue 2 after defeating Grenoble 3-1 in their ground in mid-March, and then sealing the Ligue 2 title and automatic promotion outright 1 week later by beating Annecy. By the time we wrapped up the Ligue 2 campaign, we had gone 20 games unbeaten, and if not for that loss to Troyes earlier in the year, this could have been an invincible season at the second tier of French football. Alas, we still did what we needed to do and ensured that we would be hopefully causing problems for the big kahunas in Ligue 1 next year. Or rather, for the Big Macs, since, Ligue 1 is sponsored by McDonald's nowadays. Look, memes about the French League be damned, McDonald's is a far better sponsorship than Uber fucking Eats, and I will die on that hill.
McDonald's, bienvenue comme vous êtes.
So, we've talked about Ligue 2, but we still gotta catch up on what happened with the Coupe de France. So, let's go back to early March, where we went into enemy territory at the Decathlon Arena, Stade Pierre Mauroy, and played an incredibly defensive match where neither side was able to find the back of the net across 90 minutes, thus forcing the need for penalty kicks. Stasson and Giroud would score in the first round. Recoba's shot would be saved by the Lille keeper, but thankfully, Nabil Bentaleb's shot would sail over the goal and into the stands, keeping things even. Bench player Mahmoud Jabert converted his penalty kick, and on Hakon Haraldsson's attempt, Gauthier Lassonnière would step up and make the save to give Saint-Étienne the advantage. Dylan Batumbinska would convert his PK, Thiago Santos would do the same for Lille, and then it was down to former Brighton Academy graduate Joshua Duffus, who proceeded to score and send Saint-Étienne to the semifinals of the Coupe de France. Calling this an upset would be an understatement, as we somehow dragged a perennial French powerhouse into the depths of hell and left them there in order to get to the semifinals for the first time since ASSE's 2019-20 season run in this cup. Of course, it was only fitting that on the other side of the bracket, Lyon would be waiting for us after defeating Marseille 1-0 in their quarterfinal round. Turns out that fans from both teams would not have to wait more than a full calendar year for Le Derby, an apt name for what is known as France's biggest derby, between two incredibly different clubs and really two incredibly different communities who have no love lost for one another. The fact that this would determine who gets to go to the Coupe de France's grand final was only the icing on the cake. For me, the biggest caveat of it all was that we had been drawn as the home team for the Coupe de France semifinal. Personally, I couldn't ask for anything more in my first encounter against John Textor's Ligue 1 team, by having them come to Stade Geoffroy-Guichard to face the music. So imagine my surprise when we're the ones getting hit with the equivalent of Sweet Chin music, as Lyon proceeded to score 3 goals in the first 15 minutes of the game with far too much ease.
Got him landing on his feet. Oh my God in heaven! The Sweet Chin music!
But I would be damned if I was going to roll over and let John Textor's goon squad get the better of me in our first encounter. We took a far more attacking approach after conceding the third goal, and with it, Zuriko Davitashvili managed to get one back within a minute to make this a 3-1 game. 5 minutes later, Jeremia Recoba passed it into the box and a sprinty Augustin Boisquet took the shot to score and make this a 3-2 game. We were back in it, and I did not dare to let the foot off the gas. We nearly tied it at the end of the first half with a shot that hit the post, and coming back from the early knockdown by Lyon just made us hungrier in the second half. It would be in the 61st minute where Boisquet dribbled his way into the box and his pass found Florian Tadiou, who hit it in one fluid motion into the bottom left corner of the net, past various bodies and the Lyon keeper. 3-3. Tie game. The momentum was fully in our favor now. Of course, Lyon wasn't going to take this lying down either. They almost got the turnaround goal immediately after our tying one, if not for Ivan Masson's timely block on the goal line. But we would continue to chase after the winning goal even as the minutes played on, and eventually, it was the same exact scenario as it was with Lille. 90 plus minutes and no clear winner. So it was all going to be settled on penalty kicks once again. The man who got the game-tying goal in Florian Tadiu would go first, and he'd score it. For Lyon, they opted to go with Englishman Ainsley Maitland-Niles as their first taker, only for Gauthier Lassonnier to make an incredible save. From here, the next 3 rounds see the takers across both sides of the ball pick their spots and score accordingly to keep these penalty kicks going and for Lyon to stay alive, while hoping for their own keeper to come up with some magic. Eventually, it comes down to Maxime Bernauer to put an end to it all in the 5th round. And he buried it, sending Saint-Étienne to the finals of the Coupe de France. Just, ignore the weird bug with the one guy showing up rushing the net. I'm sure Sports Interactive will get to fixing that sometime in the next 4 to 8 months, along with the backlog of bugs they've got on their message boards. Anyways, this one was an absolute classic. From start to finish, it had action, it had goals, and it's proof that the project we have here can beat out multi-millionaire dollars coming out of one of the whiniest Americans to ever own sports teams of any sort. In the most unexpected turn of events, we've managed to already start making John Textor's life miserable in France, and we're not even back up in Ligue 1 just yet. Oh, you want to know what he said after his club's complete meltdown and loss at the Coupe de France semifinals?
This is corruption, this is a theft.
Yeah, that checks out. Of course, we know very well at this point who's waiting for Saint-Étienne on the other side of the Coupe de France final. I mean, they've been here 8 out of the last 10 finals and won 7 of them, and look, you already know it's Paris Saint-Germain that I'm talking about here. In fact, this was a rematch of the 2019-20 Coupe de France final where PSG beat Saint-Étienne 1-0 at Stade de France. People didn't expect much of us. If anything, the pressure was on Paris Saint-Germain to yet again maintain the status quo and not lay a goose egg like they did against Rennes in the 2018-19 edition of this thing. All we could do at this point was just play the game. And donate our third kits for the first time all season, we did just that.
2 hours later.
I mean, we lost, obviously, but we did give them a scare and even had a lead into the second half with a Stasson counterattack goal that was a thing of beauty to watch. But you know, PSG decided to shit on our hopes and dreams and eventually won it in convincing fashion in extra time. But even that loss could not erase the fact that we did what we needed to do in Ligue 2 and got the bonus of making an unlikely Coupe de France run in the process, all while giving John Textor a taste of what it feels like to lose in Les Derby under important circumstances. But Ligue 1 was going to be our biggest challenge yet, as a lot of the players on this current team were also there for the 2024-25 campaign that saw them get relegated. So, my first call during the off-season was to a certain neighborhood in Rio de Janeiro. Because if I was going to take on French giants and survive to live the tale, I would need the monster himself helping lead our backline to do so.